VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker coming to you from a different room. My kids have a second consecutive snow day today, so I got to improvise and find a quieter spot, which happens to be my makeshift office. So we're going to use this little forum to talk about Dalvin Tomlinson, his mini little saga from the offseason that's been shaken down. I want to walk through, I go through this internal debate about viewership on the show. If you guys are obsessed with the team like me, or if you watch it casually and then just wait for me to unpack everything. So I'm going to assume that you kind of, sort of know what's going on with Dalvin Tomlinson, and by the end of these 10 minutes, you should have a good grasp on just what in the hell is the deal for the Vikings defensive tackle. So, Dalvin Tomlinson was the splashy offseason signing in 2021, supposed to be paired with Michael Pierce for a glorious, thick signing in the middle of the defensive line. Didn't really work because they were rarely healthy at the same time. Both are marvelous football players, by the way. But Pierce went elsewhere, Baltimore Ravens last offseason, and here we are with Dalvin Tomlinson, who's in a similar situation this year because he signed a 2-year deal 2 years ago. On the 20th, February 20th, there was this deadline for voided dead cap penalty money for players to be extended, and then that money can be spread out over the extended years at the choosing of the general manager or the team. In this case, it was Dalvin Tomlinson, who last year, when the Vikings were clearing cap space, they said, hey, homie, we're going to take $7.5 million of your bucks that's already been paid to you or will be paid soon, and put that into 2023's offseason so we can have more ways to navigate and sign other free agents last year. That was Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's decision 1 year ago. But then everything came home to roost this offseason, where Dalvin Tomlinson's dead cap hit is $7.5 million no matter what happens. It can be spread out if he's extended, or it'll just hit the books. Kind of like, you remember last year when Zadarius Smith was real hot and kind of feeling like a defensive player of the year? There were folks that tweeted, oh, the Packers are paying him to pay for the Vikings. Well, that's a half-truth. He's already been paid money, and sometimes teams take the dead cap money and push it into the future and say, we'll worry about it when the salary cap inflates. Same thing happened with Anthony Barr and the Vikings. The Vikings paid him to play for the Cowboys last year, which isn't technically true, but the money suggests that against the Vikings books, he didn't play for the Vikings and he played for the Cowboys, and he was getting, paid by the Cowboys, and the retroactive money was just hitting the Vikings books. So on the 20th, the Vikings had this deadline to say, all right, Dalvin DT, the DT, we want you back. Well, that 3 p.m. deadline on that afternoon came and went, and no extension happened. And the immediate aftermath of that was to say, well, I guess Dalvin Tomlinson's a goner. He's not coming back. Evidently, you're going to have to sign somebody in free agency, roll with a guy currently on the depth chart, or, use the NFL draft to find his replacement. And that was because of the relative inactivity that there was no extension. And there's dead cap logic here. So I think emotionally, if you have a guy on the hook, like pretend you're Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, if you have a guy on the hook who's eating $7.5 million of your dead cap in 2023, wouldn't you want to have him on the team so you feel better about, not wasting it all? You procrastinated this into the future. If you can bring Tomlinson back, it'll make you feel like this was the plan all along. Otherwise, if he goes and plays for the Falcons or Bears or some team, then you're in that situation where you're paying him to play somewhere else, even though that isn't 100% true. So that's the logic. If you're going to have him on the books, why not have him on the field? I think an important thing to note is that his contract that he will seek, whether that is with the Vikings or unnamed anonymous team A, it should probably fetch about $10 million per season. That's how good he is. He's so damn consistent that the Vikings got to decide if they want to be the team that shells out $10 million per year. And for Tomlinson, based on his consistency, probably so. I have a long-standing joke with Yannick Eckhart, who's been on this show before and writes for Vikings territory, that when Pro Football Focus adjudicates Tomlinson's performance from game to game, it's so consistent, 73.9, 72.8, 77.6. It's so consistent that it feels like they don't even need to watch the tape. Like, he's guaranteed to be in the 70s for efficiency. So I think we joke that 78.2 today, and then against the Packers 71.9. It never deviates from he doesn't have a shitty game, nor is he Aaron Donald-ish elite. So he's a steady Eddie, a damn good defensive tackle, and he has versatility. There's a lot of chirping on Vikings social media that Tomlinson's overrated, or when it felt like he was going to walk, it was like, yeah, we didn't need him anyway. And I just disagree with that. He is an adept run stuffer. He's huge, and he can get to the passer. I mean, he's not like a true three-tech, thin. He's more of a nose tackle. That's what the Giants used him in his past life. But he can still, regardless, kind of like Michael Pierce, get to the passer, and that's why he's on the Vikings. So I think, despite what you might read in tweets or in other people's articles, that he doesn't fit the Flores scheme, I just don't agree with that, because he does the two things that you ask of a defensive tackle: stuffs the run, gets to the passer. How does that not fit a scheme? I guess in theory, if you don't want to do one of those, if you want to load up on pass rushers, so be it. But then what when the other team wants to run the football? So I fundamentally disagree that Dalvin Tomlinson is not a fit for the Flores scheme. And I think you're going to start to see it, that the Vikings agree with me that, we want this guy back. So here's what happened. That deadline I said passed on the 20th. No Tomlinson. He ain't coming back. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, who was it? Tom Pelissero? The powers that be tweeted that an extension deadline has been extended. So it's no longer February 20th that the Vikings and Tomlinson have to decide. It's March 15th, which coincidentally is when free agency formally begins. Legal tampering will be on March 13th, but on 15th, ink can hit the dotted line. So this is the implication of that. If the Vikings have asked to push out this decision, Dalvin, can we spread out your dead cap over the next 3 years when we sign you back? They have to make that choice by March 15th. It was February 20th, but somehow it was pushed back. This implies that they want him back, because otherwise, if you didn't, you don't even need the extension to the extension. If you're going to let him walk, if he was too expensive, if he doesn't fit the Flores scheme, the hell with you. $7.5 million dead cap just hits the books and nothing we can do about it. But the extension of the deadline suggests that, no, we want to finagle a deal, and so you can return to the Vikings for an extra 2 or 3 years. And I think those conversations are coming. Now, he could get more money on the open market, and all the power to him. But the mere fact that there was this extension of the deadline to March 15th means that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah indeed has desire to bring him back on the 2023 Vikings. And you should celebrate that, because this is a good football player. He missed 4 games in 2022, but such is life. I mean, it's not quite Michael Pierce-ish, where, misses half the time. So I think you should be firmly excited by a prolonged relationship with Tomlinson. And I'll conclude by saying this, if not him, then who? You got some ideas? Deron Payne, he's expensive. I guess in theory you could promote Khyiris Tonga and hope for the best. He's a tremendous value-based re-signee who's already hit the books. What was that, last weekend? 1 year, $940,000. But Tonga could come out and be great, or he's like Duke Shelley. You don't know if he's going to duplicate what he did in 2022 upcoming in September. So I think in a pinch you'd roll with Tonga, but if not Tomlinson, then what's the backup plan? A free agent, James Lynch, Tonga, going to use some early round draft capital on interior defensive lineman. What are you going to do? I think Tomlinson is guaranteed to be good. He's a commodity, and you can't go wrong. And I think that is why the Vikings are still working toward his extension. Now, tomorrow, we'll be back. Josh Fry, I've asked him to pick 5 free agents that the Vikings should target. And we'll spend about 3 minutes on each dude, and he'll describe why and how they'd fit on the 2023 Vikings. But as for Thursday, hopefully you're unearthing from all the snow. That's all I got, and skol, baby.